What is up, Nuggets? It's your boy, Killer Pizza, here with a brand new video for you rascals and rapscallions out there. As always, I hope everybody's having a great weekend, and I hope each and every one of you had a wonderful 4th of July. I know this was the first time I had the 4th of July off in over 5 years at my shoot job, so I was pretty happy about that. Though they made me come in on Friday, so that kind of flubbed up what could have been a 4-day weekend. But regardless, I enjoyed it, and I hope everybody else had a good one too. But that day on the 4th of July is kind of what inspired this video, because I did a quadruple feature, 4 movies around the 4th of July, or at least I associate with that. And the first movie at hand that I watched, that I want to talk about today, as you can see from the title, is 1985's Day of the Dead, directed by George A. Romero. So this is one of my all-time favorite horror movies. And if you guys are wondering what my quadruple feature was, I started with Day of the Dead. Then I watched Team America World Police. Then I brought it back to horror with the 4K of Jaws. And I ended the night with one of my all-time favorites, The Sandlot. So I had some people telling me, like, one of these things just ain't like the other, saying Day of the Dead. But I disagree. You know, this has a lot to do with the military and everything in the summertime. And I don't know. I kind of associate it with the 4th of July for whatever reason, at least a summertime zombie movie and whatnot. And I'm trying not to make this video too long. I'm going to say right off the bat, this is not a review. I just watched this for the first time in probably a couple years. And I already did a review of this about 4 years ago if you want to check that out. I did not watch it. I'm sure it's super cringe, like I find all my old videos. So anyways, yeah, this is not a review. I'm just going to come on here and talk about this movie, how amazing it is. But anyways, with that being said, I think we all understand the plot of this movie, obviously, which is something really cool about this trilogy, the first 3 George Romero zombie movies, you know, Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead, Day of the Dead. Whereas Night of the Living Dead is kind of taking place right as the zombie outbreak is just starting. Dawn of the Dead is when it's completely starting to take over. And Day of the Dead is pretty much like where each person is 500,000 to 1 to the zombies. So the world is pretty much completely ended by Day of the Dead, where we have a bunch of scientists and what down in this big military bunker trying to study these zombies and find like a way out of this like apocalypse that's going on. Then we have a bunch of military people down there that are, it's their duty to protect the scientists, a helicopter driver, and a guy who kind of runs the electronics, walkie-talkie radios and whatnot. So that's our whole crew, no more than a dozen people down in this bunker. And I just felt the need to talk about this movie because I feel like it oftentimes gets overlooked, even by me. I would consider this like a top 10 favorite horror movie. I've mentioned it to you guys before. My favorite subgenre of horror is slashers, followed very closely by zombie movies. I grew up on zombie movies and I love them. But I think the fact that Dawn of the Dead is one of my very favorite horror movies in my top 3, sometimes I overlook how good Day of the Dead is, which in my opinion, Day of the Dead is technically a better movie. I just prefer Dawn of the Dead, but really this isn't far behind it, let alone Return of the Living Dead being my very favorite horror movie of all time. I have 2 zombie movies in my top 3, so I feel sometimes this one gets knocked away to the side and everything. But I love this movie. I think what this does good is it kind of has some aspects that remind me of The Thing, John Carpenter's The Thing in a way, where something George Romero does really good is develop into these characters. And I've heard a lot of people say in the past when it comes to horror movies, like, oh, you don't need good characters because everyone's going to die anyways. But I've always disagreed with this. Now, don't get me wrong. If you have random characters in there to bump up the body count, I'm all for it. More gore, the better. And there are maybe 2 or 3 soldiers that aren't really as known in this movie that are just there for the body count towards the end. But I think it really matters with these characters, and this is a prime example of it. Because a lot of this movie, though zombies are in the opening scene, which is one of the most badass opening scenes when they're flying the helicopter over the town. I don't know, it looks like maybe Florida or something. I don't know. And, you know, he's on the walkie-talkie, hello! And the one zombie comes through with, like, the jaw hanging off the hinges. There's a really cool, like, Velcro snapback DVD I see people showing off with. It has that zombie in the opening, like, booklet of it. I used to have that when I was younger, and it was badass. But anyways, you know, with zombies being present in this entire movie, it's more of a movie of isolation and characters and not getting along with each other. So General Cooper, I believe, was the last military sergeant or whatever in charge, and by the time they come back on the helicopter, they find out he is dead. There's a new grave, And now we have Captain Rhodes, played by Joe Pilato, one of my very favorite characters in any horror movie. He is now in control, and this guy's performance is something else. Like, what a prick. And I also have a hot take about this, which I'll get to in just a second. So it's pretty much Joe Pilato, Captain Rhodes is in charge now, and the science experiments and everything aren't really getting where they want him to be. He's losing patience, losing his men, losing his time and everything starts to reach to a boiling point in this movie until, as I always like to say, chaos ensues. But I love this movie so much, and I found I have a lot of hot takes with this movie, like right off the rip. When they get back with the helicopter, land on the helicopter pad, all the zombies are outside the gate, and you hear John, the guy who flies the helicopter, the whirlybird, he says, we better make sure it has fuel in it. I'd rather have no fuel than fuel when we need it, or something like that. He's got this Jamaican accent, one of the most likable characters. And the one of the doctors, Dr. Sarah Logan or something, or no, that's the pro wrestler, Dr. Sarah something. I hate this shit, man. I never noticed it till this last time I watched this on the 4th of July. She's like, we don't have time to put gas into the tank. These zombies, we've already riled them up. But then she's like all up Miguel's ass, one of these soldiers that she's hooking up with, like her boyfriend, and he's all disturbed, which great performance, method actor of like just seeing the end of the world. And I'm thinking, lady, you're thinking with the wrong parts right here. You don't want to put gas in the helicopter, but all your concern is almost being biased towards the one soldier just because in a way you're hooking up with him. I know that's not necessarily how it is, but I took it that way in a little bit. So there's certain elements with good characters in this movie when I compare him to Captain Rhodes where I'm like, you guys aren't much better than that, because here's my hot take with Captain Rhodes. He is a prick. He says a lot of terrible things. He makes a very gross kind of remark to Sarah at one point that I don't approve with. But he's going on and on in this movie. Why the fuck are we doing experiments on these zombies? Why are we trying to train them? They're dead. Let's fucking blow them up and get the fuck out of here. And my whole life as a kid, I always looked at him as a villain. And the older I got, the more I rewatched it. I'm like, I would have been like Captain Rhodes in this movie. Somebody's got to be kind of a dick, to be a leader in this type of situation. And he's just trying to wrangle everybody up together. Could he have done it with different and better methods? For sure. But at the same time, like, you guys, these zombies are dead. They're, he's risking all his soldiers and everything. Like, let's stop fiddling around with this and maybe try to find a different way and everything. And then we meet Dr. Frankenstein, the main doctor, is doing research. And it's one of the most memorable parts of the movie on the cover of this zombie. One of the most well-known zombies, maybe behind Tarman, Bubs. He's training him almost like an animal, like a house pet. But this is what he gets into it with Captain Rhodes. The two of them have conflict because he's saying, you're wasting my time and everything. I'm running this damn monkey farm now, Dr. Frankenstein, and I want to know what the fuck you're doing with my time. Or however he said, rest in peace, Joe Pilato, would have loved to meet him. But he ends up finding out that they're experimenting on some of the dead soldiers. And when they find that out, Captain Rhodes goes crazy and kills Dr. Frankenstein and everything. Another hot take I'll give for you guys, I'm not the biggest fan of Bubs. And guess what? With Return of the Living Dead being my favorite horror movie of all time, I'm not the biggest fan of Tarman either. I think maybe it's because they're two out of the franchises that get all the license in, on a lot of this horror merch and everything. And I just oversaturated, overused sometimes. I don't know. I like them, but I think like they get pushed down your throat so much as like the best, That's my hot take. I kind of want to do this video too because somebody asked in my recent Q&A some hot takes, and I realized I got a couple in this movie that Sarah her head might not have been on straight. Captain Rhodes wasn't necessarily wrong, and I think Bubs is a little overrated. There, I said it. I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry about that. Like, even when Dr. Frankenstein wants Rhodes to give a salute back to Bubs, why would you do that? He's a dead zombie. Fuck that, But where I would say this movie is better than a lot before Dawn of the Dead, like technically, it's just shot so well down in this bunker. You can really feel the isolation in this movie. They use the space so great. This might be my favorite soundtrack out of the first three George Romero zombie movies. Dun 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 dun. I just love that music. I mean, there's good music in Dawn of the Dead too, and the characters in here are great. Definitely like the characters in Dawn of the Dead more, but these are all pretty likable in a good way or a bad way, if that makes sense. It's so many quotable lines, like when Sarah's not listening to Captain Rhodes and he tells Steele, who's another fun character, a big bully of a soldier, like, shoot her now. Okay, bang, you're dead. He pulls his gun out on Steele. Did I stutter? Whatever he says, like, you shoot this woman or I'll kill you right now. Like, it's pretty intense, you know. And then my favorite part of this movie, for sure, is the gore. This is prime Tom Savini practical effects. If you've never seen this movie before, you definitely got to check it out. Just the couple scenes where the organs are falling out of the cadavers and everything. And then when Miguel gets bit up in a really fucked up scene where he's letting all the zombies down on the elevator and he's just getting chewed up. Like, I think they use, like, I remember watching the create practical effects, like, when I was a kid. It's like some kind of, like, cornstarch, obviously, and, like, some kind of, like, elastic that, like, makes the skin rip. It looks different than anything else I'm used to in zombie movies, and it looks amazing. Like, the bites look so vicious when someone's getting a chunk taken out of them. And the soldiers' deaths in this are pretty good. The one guy with a really obnoxious laugh, when he gets, like, the fingers through his eye holes and it's ripping the skin up and showing his eye, then he gets his, and then, you know, I think it's him or the other guy, I don't know, they get his head ripped off, and you see the vocal cords stretching as his head's coming off, and his whole voice, the pitch is going higher and higher and higher. And that is unbelievable. And this goes off another thing about my favorite practical effect, my favorite kill that Sean Silver asked in my Q&A. And when I came up with it, it had to be Captain Rhodes. It don't get no better than that. Like, especially the lead up. Bub is chasing him down, shooting him. Come on, come on. He opens that door, and I love his reaction. As a pro wrestler, the over-the-top reaction when he turns and sees all the hands coming in. And how he gets ripped apart. It is fucking nasty. Choke on him. Choke on him. And I always heard the story that they left all these, like, real organs, animal organs for the scene, like, in a fridge that went out. And they left for, like, the weekend or something. And when they came back, all the guts were rotten. So they had, like, one take. And I guess people were throwing up on the set from the smell and everything. But it's pretty brutal, you know. And yeah, I love the characters here. John with the whirly bird. I don't remember the name of his sidekick, the other guy that runs, like, the radio and everything. But he has a pretty heroic scene where he's traveling through the mines with Sarah. And he's got a pretty good kill, too, where he takes off the zombie's head with a shovel. And pretty much, you know, all three of them end up taking off and making it to, like, a desert island, like a tropical island, you know. So probably one of the happier endings out of all three. You know, you could argue that with Dawn of the Dead, but you don't really see where they end up going in the helicopter in Dawn of the Dead. And they're low on fuel, so, like, you don't really know how that's going to end. But I just love this movie, you know, because at times, like, Dawn of the Dead, there's a lot of isolation, too. They're in a more lively setting, especially when they get the mall going. And they have some pretty fun moments with, like, the montage of them shopping around and playing video games and ice skating and shit, where Day of the Dead doesn't have very many redeemable qualities in terms of, like, happiness. It's pretty dark the entire movie. Like, maybe that's why, like, when John gives that speech about, like, how the world works and everything, you know, we're in one so-and-so mild tombstone, and he's talking about, like, hope. Maybe that's why that scene sticks out so much, because there's not really any other moments that reach out to give you a little hope in this movie. You're just almost hoping they survive in a weird way. And with that being said with this movie, too, I gotta say, I think when we talk about trilogies in horror movies, granted there was 6 of these total, George Romero zombie movies, I think one that also gets overlooked is the trilogy of Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead, Day of the Dead. If you put those 3 in a box as one trilogy, it's pretty hard to put that up against any others. Maybe Evil Dead 1 and 2 and Army of Darkness, but to me this is an all-time classic, and I think when it gets talked about compared to Dawn of the Dead especially, like I said, for me this gets overlooked a little bit, which it's like an amazing movie, a damn near masterpiece. And it fucking sucks that this isn't going to get a 4K. I heard from somebody recently it's a licensing deal, so, like, the 4K probably isn't going to come out, because there were certain scenes that on this Blu-ray I watched where I thought, you know, it's a little grainy. It'd be nice if this looked better, especially with those damn kills. But, you know, the one critique I would have maybe with this movie of it being a little slow at times, or there's not much happiness or hope, are also things that complement it. Like, it's a slow burn, and it's not meant to have you have hope or excitement in a weird way. Like I said, you're just kind of living it with these people and just hoping that they can get out unscathed. But All the characters are great. The tension between the soldiers and the scientists, and then kind of the third duo of like I said, John the helicopter flyer and pilot and his buddy. Good contrast between them. The soundtrack is completely underrated. I would love to get this on vinyl. I'm thinking it's just maybe like at times the music gives it a little hope. But like I said, the story in general and the gore is top notch. And Captain Rhodes was not wrong. But if he was, he got what he deserved in that kill. One of the greatest of all time. But yeah, I highly suggest checking this one out, guys. If you haven't seen this in a while, like I said, it's one of my favorites, but it's been a couple years, and I had a lot of fun revisiting this on the 4th of July. I love this movie so much. And like I said, with my quadruple feature, let me know in the comments what you guys watched on 4th of July. I know a lot of people I know are watching Independence Day. Always loved when he kicked the alien. I was supposed to be at a barbecue today. But anyways, let me know what you think of Day of the Dead. Where does this rank in your all-time favorite zombie movies or horror movies? But anyways, with that being said, I said I just want to hop on here and make a quick little video. So clearly I love this movie because I ended up talking damn near 17 minutes about Day of the Dead, one of George Romero's greatest movies ever made. I regret never getting to meet Joe Pilato. His performance in this is unbelievable, or being able to meet George Romero. He used to come down to the convention by my house all the time, but that was before I was into the convention scene. Also, I'll be at Motor City Nightmares this year on Saturday if anybody's going to be there. So let me know in the comments or anything if you're going to be there. We can meet up, have a beer and whatnot. But with that being said, like I was saying earlier, I hope everybody's having a great weekend, getting ready for the summer. With that said, Blood Guts Gore, I will check you guys next time.